I want to share an incredible story with you that I saw about an individual, which is absolutely amazing. It's about a yeshiva boy who was beginning to start the semester, the summer semester in Israel. And he writes like this: the semester for yeshiva was starting with the zaman that we say in Hebrew on a Thursday afternoon. I arrived 2 hours early at 1 o'clock. Even before I stepped out of the car, I saw the boy. His wide smile and irrepressible energy were discernible a mile off. He asked me, "Are you Breitkopf?" "Yes," I said. "Cool, you look exactly like they told me. Short, a little on the pudgy side. We're roommates." He shook my hand in an energetic fashion. "I'm Yaakov," he said. "Rabbi, please," he asked my father, "can you open the trunk?" We were wondering why he wanted us to open our trunk. Before I could say a word, Yaakov dived into the trunk and was hauling out pile after pile of my suitcases packed with everything you could imagine: bedding, clothing, shoes, snacks, whatnot. Judging by my luggage, you would have guessed I was leaving for a year-long tour of the Far East, and not for the shortest time of the year at yeshiva, not far from my house. Yaakov carried about 100 pounds of my baggage without breaking a sweat. I was hyperventilating just watching him, going back and forth, back and forth. Amazingly enough, he could talk while carrying also. "Wait, what did you say your name was?" "Shimon." "Oh, okay. So listen, Shimon, our room is on the 3rd floor. There's another student in our room by the name of Ariel Roth," he told me. "No, he hasn't arrived yet, but we got a pretty good room," he told me. "It's a little out of the way, but we're only 3 to a room. There are rooms with up to 8 students in the room, so we got very lucky. I came a little early," he said, "so I managed to fix it up a little. I bought 2 new light bulbs, and I fixed the closet. The door wasn't closing well. A new hinge was all it needed." So this Yaakov got busy and he got in early to the dormitory to fix things, and he made himself handy. He rattled all this off at a dizzying pace, all breaking off only to exchange a friendly wave with one student and pat another one on the back, in addition to the winks and other gestures he exchanged with the dozens of people we passed on the way from my father's car to our room. So this was definitely a very friendly young man. "Okay, we're almost there," he said. "We're on the 3rd floor, and most of the guys our age are on the 4th. But it's good. This way we'll get to know the older guys who are on the floor with us." It seemed like Yaakov had been at the yeshiva for years. He already knew most of the students, and as soon as we reached our room, he helped me unpack my bags, make my bed, stow my things away, and perform a dozen other tasks I could never have managed on my own. This was a true person who was a student of kindness. But it seemed the most natural thing in this world to him. To get such a roommate, I gushed to my parents that night in my first call home. It could only be a combination of my mother's prayers and divine supervision, how God had been so kind to me to grant me such a great roommate. There could be no other explanation for such a stroke of good luck. And indeed, Yaakov would reveal himself to be a student with a heart of gold, the first to volunteer for any assignment, always upbeat, always in a great mood, and with a broad smile, always with something positive to say. Only one thing darkened his days at yeshiva: the learning of Torah. That made him sweat blood. Yaakov, of all people, Yaakov had never been late to class or missed the prayers in his life. He simply couldn't learn. He didn't have the skills to understand the learning in the yeshiva. And it broke his heart. It wasn't that Yaakov's mind was full of garbage, God forbid. He would devote his whole attention to the Gemara, to the Talmud. But he just couldn't crack it. He couldn't figure it out. It didn't matter what time he went to bed. At 6:45, he was always on his feet. He got up early. Naturally, we appointed him to wake us up in the morning, and he did so with perseverance and sensitivity. Within a short time, he was put in charge of the yeshiva's library, given duties in the kitchen, appointed head of the medicine and pen gemachs, and had become the definitive address for anyone in need of anything in the yeshiva. It wasn't his heart alone that made him a heart of gold. His hands were incredible hands of gold as well. No problem was too naughty for his incredible skills and out-of-the-box thinking. A broken shutter, he could fix it. A closet that was broken, Yaakov could fix it. A light bulb that needed to be replaced, he surely could take care of that. A stubborn hinge or a door handle, he'd fix anything, and he was able to do it all easily, with determination, skill, and creativity. It seemed to come to him naturally, as if he were descended from a long line of mechanics and engineers. But of course, that couldn't have been farther from the truth. And yet we got to learn soon enough that Yaakov came from a family of incredible rabbis, major league Torah scholars in Bnei Brak, a city which is known for its incredible population of Torah scholars. His father is a well-known rabbi, as are his grandfather, uncles, and brothers. All of them, of course, learned in the top yeshivas in Bnei Brak. And it was he, the youngest in the family, quote-unquote, Am Haaretz, or ignoramus, who was sent to learn in a distant city from his home and his family, because as if AKA they were embarrassed of him since he wasn't from the same cut as his father and his brothers and his uncles. We all noticed that Yaakov never seemed eager to go home. In the Israeli yeshiva system, new boys typically go home every second week to soften their landing in a new institution. Yaakov, however, opted to remain at yeshiva. Very unusual. Most boys would have dashed home. This was odd. The idea that a student would voluntarily choose the exile of the dorm to the comfort of his own home and the great food of his mom seemed strange to us, but it soon became clear that the sentiment was mutual. If Yaakov was not eager to return to his family, they weren't eager to have him back. When we probed him delicately about the situation, the extent of the tragedy became clear. You have to understand something, he said. I'm considered modern by my family's standards. Modern? We said, Yaakov, modern? Didn't seem to be modern at all. While I had formed some vague idea of what he meant by that, our third roommate didn't have the slightest inkling what he meant to convey by that term. So Yaakov told us, you don't understand how modern I am. On Shabbos, I use electricity from the National Electricity Company. But my parents don't believe in using electricity on Shabbos from the electricity company. They use a kerosene lamp, as if he had just listed one of the 3 cardinal sins. While we gazed at him uncomprehendingly, he continued, I also rely on the kashrus of the yeshiva kitchen and don't take additional tithes from the fruit that they serve. In our family, they don't do that. He had a whole set of unfamiliar classifications where his parents were much more stricter than most people. In our family, everyone is extremely religious. Very. Not that there's no diversity, of course there is. We all have types, but we're all extremely religious. Most of the people in my family write svarim, write books, or innovate new halachic rulings, and I'm not like them. My parents and my family sent me here far away to an open type of yeshiva because I'm not like my brothers. I'm not even close. Not just in learning, also when it comes to fear of God. You know me, during the summer, I wear a short sleeve shirt and I even wear a watch on Shabbos. You think these are profound sins. At home, of course, I do none of this out of respect for my parents, but here, that feels more natural to me. We didn't know whether to laugh, to rage, or to simply cry. We realized from the incredible detail he accorded every aspect of his wardrobe that there were words of significance that were completely eluding us. But one thing we understood very well. While we had set out to yeshiva with a sense of excitement and pride, Yaakov came here with a sense of shame, like as if he had been demoted from his family. It was an excellent way for his family to get this black sheep out of their sight and out of their life. Our hearts went out to Yaakov. How could you treat a child like that? How such a student, talented, likable, honest, and disciplined, not the pride of his family, but rather the black sheep of his family? For entire nights, Yaakov shared his pain, a pain that never left him. As we lay in our beds in our dorm room, looking up at the cracked ceiling and hearing the crickets chirp, Yaakov poured his heart out to us, taking us through the emotional roller coaster that had been his childhood. Since it became clear that learning doesn't come easy to me, my parents have always seen me as the major disappointment of their life. They took me to see every rabbi. We went to all the grave sites where they prayed for me. My mother has soaked countless books of Tehillim and Psalms with tears, pleading with God over me. She doesn't understand why did she deserve a son like me. Could you believe it? Why is it that among her entire extended family, it was she who had to have a son who isn't like everyone else, who doesn't learn? Not long after he first opened his heart to us, Yaakov began to direct his frustration at himself. When will I, Yaakov, he would talk to himself, stop embittering my mother's life and merit to finally learn like my brothers? Could you imagine? When will I finally fit in with my family? What crime did this young, wonderful boy commit? We soon came to understand when Yaakov was in yeshiva elementary school and still learned close to home, his progress had become something of an obsession in the family. At that tender age, this gentle-hearted youth had endured tremendous emotional upheaval. He was considered like a loser. My mother davened for me all the time because I was like the loser of the family, he told us. Usually she davens quietly, but she davened for me out loud, making sure that I would hear how she would pray and what she would say. She would say, "Oh God." I would hear her raise her voice through the wall between my bedroom and her bedroom. Open my Yaakov's heart. Make him stop looking outward in the world and become a true Ben Torah. And that, Yaakov told us with resignation, is why I don't enjoy going home. I don't feel special. They don't make me feel special. Imagine I go home and I feel like a loser. I know my presence won't bring my parents any pleasure. It's not like they kick me out, God forbid, but it gives my father pain to even be seen with me. True, I miss my many family events because I can't deal with the looks that I get from my uncles and my older brothers. I can sense the shame they have by looking at me. But what can I say? I understand them. A Jew should really be spending his days and nights learning Torah. What can I say? I'm not like them. All our protests that he was a top student fell on deaf ears. There was no one to talk to. Yaakov knew that he was a black sheep, and it seemed like he was more or less resigned to that. The first time I invited Yaakov over to my house was on the holiday of Sukkot. Our family had a tradition of a special seudah on the night of the Ushpuzin, when Yaakov Avinu comes to visit on that night. So we invite many people whose name is Yaakov, and we partake of a great feast. And Yaakov obviously had that name. It was only natural to invite Yaakov, my newfound friend. The yeshiva's party was one day later, so we agreed that he would stay with us overnight and that we would go to the yeshiva's party the next day together. When I introduced Yaakov to my parents, the chemistry was instant. My father was impressed by his fear of God and common sense, and my mother said that she had finally found her long-lost son. Amazing. A child who was a curse to one parent was the blessing to another. After an acquaintance of less than 24 hours, my mother began listing some of Yaakov's incredible and wondrous qualities to us Brykov children. What a charming and serious student he is, she said. First of all, he's so industrious. He gets up on time, or even before the time. He makes his bed on his own, puts his stuff away. So polite. He's such a mensch. We thought we gotten the message, but she wasn't done. Look how he takes care of the lulav and esrog that he brought. Look how he leaves for shul on time with your father. I ask him what he'd like for breakfast, and he tells me something doable, not some exotic breakfast, something reasonable. He doesn't ask for something he knows we don't have. He has such great midos, such quality of character, such refined character. At this point, she raised her voice and directed a significant look towards a certain member of our family. And look how he says thank you for every little thing. Look how organized he is. I hear he can even read the Torah beautifully. Master of the universe, she would say, what did his mother do to earn such a treasure? And imagine his mother would cry to God, what did I earn? What did I do to earn such a disappointment? It's amazing. One woman's curse is another woman's blessing. This morning, she tells her children, he saw the broken door handle outside the boy's bedroom and fixed it on the spot. Finally, I found a student who doesn't just sit, not some lazy bone, not someone who has to call an electrician every time a light bulb burns out. He knows how to fix it. This is a person who says and he does. What a lucky mother Yaakov has. She concluded with a sigh before returning to take care of her own children, who alas had none of the magical qualities of this wonder kid. Beginning that Sukkot, Yaakov became a central figure in our household. His ideal image haunted me and my siblings every day. My mother saw him as the perfect son. She would always taunt us and say, when will you be like Yaakov? Look at him, he jumps out of bed like a lion to serve Hashem, while you boys roll over to the other side and continue sleeping. We took it in good spirits. Ima's love for us was evident even as she praised this young man after her own heart. Yaakov started coming over for Shabbos, and on weeks when he spent Shabbos in yeshiva, he would come over on Friday afternoon to equip himself with some goodies from my mother's kitchen for Shabbos. My mother would pack Yaakov a whole bag of chocolate cake, potato kugel, fried eggplant dip that he loved, and he'd sit and chat with my mother like another son. For my mother, the riddle of his patchy relationship with his family became more of a vexed question by the day. How could his family discard such a wonderful child, such a beautiful child? On several occasions, my mother offered to enter the picture as an intermediary. She would reason with Yaakov's mother. She'll go talk to her, but Yaakov would have none of it. Yaakov wasn't excited by the idea. If you really want to, feel free to call my mother, but trust me, nothing will come of it. For my mother, it's a matter of principle, he explained. She teaches in a seminary, and she knows that people look at her as a role model for the highest level of religious observance. She feels that if she compromises and conveys that my path is a true, legitimate path that could influence other families, and she's supposed to represent the most elite religious people. Yaakov was a keen student of human nature. When my mother met a relative of Yaakov's who hung out in somewhat different circles, she heard of a similar attempt that had ended in fierce recriminations and the end of the relationship. So my mother decided not to intervene and talk to Yaakov's mom. Yaakov reached adulthood, and his parents had to accustom themselves to the shock of a range of shidduch proposals they never could have imagined getting before. It was heartbreak after heartbreak. Their oldest sons had all married into the most illustrious families in the Torah world. The offers they were getting for their youngest son Yaakov were embarrassing by comparison. For their brothers had married the daughters of the most top exceptional rabbis. Who was Yaakov being offered? The daughter of a building contractor, the granddaughter of a supermarket chain owner, and even one who worked on the stock exchange. Could you believe it? The stock exchange, yes. What's a Jew even doing there? They would wonder. But who assigns each being to their soulmate isn't intimidated by such distinctions. Luckily for Yaakov, his good name preceded him, and even more luckily for him, it reached the ears of a certain wealthy man who was a wonderful person who was close to our family as well. One evening, this wealthy man came to our home to speak to my parents about a shidduch that had been offered to his only daughter. My mother cleaned every inch of the house and ordered the children to stay in their rooms. As someone who knew Yaakov well, I had been his roommate after all. I was allowed to be present at the discussion together with the grown-ups. We sat there, my mother and father, myself and the old family friend, late in the evening in a tense scene that I'll never forget for the rest of my life. Listen, the man said, turning to my dad, you don't have to say a word about Yaakov's family. I understand that he's an excellent student in his own right too, that he has wonderful midos or character qualities. We really only heard good things about him, but I'm asking you, very honestly, his voice shook, because we're talking about my only daughter, and she means the world to me. I don't intend to make a mistake, and you know that with the dowry I'm offering, I can get any boy I want. So I'm asking you, please tell me, Mr. Breitkopf, full disclosure, is this boy gold like he's described? I would never dream of telling you what to do, my father said to the wealthy man. But I can tell you from my personal acquaintance with Yaakov that he's tops in quality of character and a genius in kindness. He'll make your daughter extremely happy. You may find better scholars out there, but nowhere will you find a better human being equipped with such incredible character of gold like Yaakov. Eventually, the couple got engaged. The parents of the Chosson and Yaakov's family were only mildly disappointed by the shidduch. A modern student like their son married a modern young woman. What better could they expect? And that's their version of modern. When a young couple visited his father's home together, the family conversation just so happened to turn to the importance of a modest life, to how Torah is the main foundation of the home, and to the importance of a woman pushing her husband to learn a little bit every day. Yaakov had prepared his bride well, and she was able to finesse the conversation to her future in-laws to their satisfaction. Unlike Yaakov's parents, my mother was overjoyed with the shidduch. During the engagement period, the couple visited us often, and of course we offered to host their last Sheva brachas in our home. Yaakov's parents were unable to come for whatever reason, so he was surrounded only by his chosen family at the event, my family. When he was invited to speak, he sprang eagerly to his feet. He said, "This is a speech I've been waiting to make all my life." For many years, I had a question. Why is it at Sukkot specifically that we are sitting under the shadow of God? Aren't we under Hashem's shadow in every time of the year? And he says, I have found the answer in my own life. Only someone who hasn't experienced the atmosphere of a home can identify a home. On Sukkot, we leave our homes, we step out of our comfort zones, away from what's familiar and safe, and into the unfamiliar and uncertain of the outside. It's precisely at those moments when we're invulnerable and unprotected when we discover that who we can really rely on. So why do we say that we sit under the shade of Hashem in Sukkot? Because Sukkot means that we're outside. We're not in the security and confines of our homes that will have locks. We're outside. We can be attacked, but we rely on God's protection. He says the following, Yaakov, I want to thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Breitkopf, for the home you gave me. Without the home I found here, I may never have known what a home really is. If not for my situation with my parents that led me here, I may never have imagined there was such a thing as a home. That a heart can be so open to taking in someone, how you took me in. And he started breaking down and crying. I have found, with God's help, a woman with whom I can build my own home, my wonderful bride. I know what I want. It's not an apartment that I'm looking for, it's a home. That's exactly the kind of home I want to build. I want to build a place that can accept other people and see the beauty and grace in all people. I want to build a home where the people can be happy when you come, happy for you, who you are, and miss you when you're gone. In Shidduchim, some people search for apartments, some people want money. I search for a home. And thank God I found one too. When he sat down, not a single eye in the whole room was dry. I have to tell you, Yaakov, my mother said emotionally with tears coming down her face, nothing could have made me happier than what you said today. I bless you. You should enjoy every bracha together with your tzaddiket, your righteous wife. May all your dreams come true. We're looking forward to seeing the home you built together. There was a moment of silence, during which I overheard Yaakov's whispered words to his wife. If only every mother could treat her children with such kindness like Mrs. Breitkopf. She was like a mother to me. I know mothers who view their children with nothing but shame and disappointment, as if he didn't know that he was talking about his own mother. And his young wife whispered back, maybe Yaakov, maybe all those things you were missing, maybe your mother didn't give them to you because she didn't have them either. Maybe it's us who should be a home for your mother. Maybe that's our job. Many years passed since that day. Yaakov merited to raise a wonderful family. He also opened a yeshiva for boys who had not found their place in the mainstream system. Boys who had gone off the road a little bit. And he made it his job to take these boys in and give them love and warmth and bring them back. And these boys got the extra attention and out-of-box solutions that they needed. Yaakov always remained close to us. He called or visited every week, and we never missed each other's simchas or celebrations. In his living room, we kept a large photo from his wedding, featuring himself, his wife, and my parents. They're my mentors. He would tell any guests who came and would comment and who were his guests, you see the people that are sitting there on the mantle, those are my mentors, they're like my parents. But we never managed to form a connection with Yaakov's parents. We made several overtures, but they were never returned. And so when my mother was stricken with a fatal illness, and Yaakov asked if his mother could come to the hospital to visit, we had no idea how to react. For we had had very little interaction with his mother. Yaakov and his mother entered hesitantly and sat down in a chair at Ima's bedside, mom's bedside. There was an awkward silence. Yaakov was the first to recover. Mrs. Breitkopf, this is my mother. She said she wanted to visit. You haven't met in 12 years, ever since my wedding. No? My mother said to Yaakov's mother, you've come from so far away, you must be thirsty, you must be hungry. Have something to eat or drink. No, she said, we didn't come from far away. We actually came from quite close, Yaakov's mother replied. You won't believe what she told her. We actually live with Yaakov in his house now. Maybe he told you that we sold our apartment to cover the debt we acquired because of my husband's sudden illness. We needed to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay for the doctors. So we sold our apartment in order to pay for the bills. And we needed somewhere to go. All our children live in small apartments crowded with small children. But with Yaakov, we were very comfortable. He took us in, gave us a place to live. He has a huge house and a nice little apartment rental unit which he gave to us to live. Before my husband got sick, we never visited him for years. We were so embarrassed of him. Not since the time he opened his house. I remember I saw the picture of him and his wife together with you in the living room with your husband. And I said later to my husband, this is what he found to decorate his living room with? Where are the photos of rabbis? But in the past few months, we've enjoyed such a special relationship with our son Yaakov. Boy, did we blow it with him. My husband, despite his illness, is so delighted with Yaakov. They talk all day. They go to shul together, and Yaakov goes with him to all his medical appointments, and he does it all happily with such honor and respect for his dad. I say to my husband, look how he's opened his home to us, how he respects us, how sweet and intelligent his children are. True, Yaakov doesn't learn all day, but he does learn something every day, and he has such incredible character, such special midos. He isn't angry at us for everything that happened. He managed to build a beautiful relationship with us despite everything we've done. He has no hardship against us whatsoever, no revenge. He's such a tzaddik, he's such a righteous man. His home has become our home. Who said God doesn't have pleasure from him? Who said our family's way is the right way for every member of the family? Do you understand, Mrs. Breitkopf? I see this son who was always such a disappointment to us, and I can't help but wondering, maybe we were wrong with him, and we did terribly by him. All those years I knew that he was thriving in your house, and I'll be honest, I was angry at you, Mrs. Breitkopf. I see that now it was a little late, and my heart aches for all the years that I slipped by in which I could have raised him truly as a great son, but instead I wasn't nice to him. I didn't act with him as I should have acted as a mom. She gripped the arms of the plastic chair and took a deep breath. She said, Mrs. Breitkopf, I'm here to thank you for being a mother to my Yaakov, the mother I never was, for giving him what I should have given him. I feel like I missed out on the best years of his life, Mrs. Breitkopf. How can I bring those years back? I want to fix it, Mrs. Breitkopf, to apologize for everything. Her voice choked up with sobs. Mother reached out her hand to her, and Yaakov's mother threw herself on her shoulder, and my mother cried with her, tears of bereavement, tears of sorrow, tears of regret. After they had calmed down a bit, my mother spoke. You know, she said, Yaakov told me more than once that it's only when you step out of the comfort of home that you discover what your real home is. That's what it's like on Sukkot, when we step out our everyday homes and discover our real home under the shadow of God. On the last night of Sheva Brachas, he shared a beautiful Devar Torah about this. And it's the same with the exile. When you realize you're distanced from Israel, which is the real home of every Jew, and it's the same, sadly, when it comes to distance from God. You merit to discover God's light only when you realize how far you got and you became from Hashem. And it's the same with children. Ima, my mom, who knew that her days were numbered, continued. She said, very soon I'm going to leave my home, she said to Yaakov's mother. This body that was a home for my soul is getting weaker and weaker. I don't know when it will happen, but I do know that I'm leaving my home calmly, without fear, without regrets. I know that my real home is somewhere else, in the shadow of the divine presence. Still, she said, I've managed to build things here on this earth, and I hope that I'll live on in the homes of people to whom I've been a home. And I hope too that they'll continue building on that foundation. Because home is a place where the people are happy when you come and where they miss you when you leave. That's the kind of home your son is building for his family and for you, and for all the people who don't yet know what a home looks like. Ladies and gentlemen, an incredible story how one man was the curse to one family and was the blessing and light to another family. We have to be so careful how we take care of our children, how we raise them. We have to love them in spite of who they are, whatever happens to them, so that they'll always know that their home is a place they can always come back to. Have a great week, and again, if anyone needs my help in dating or shalom bayis or getting matched up or in any way getting a dating resume written, please reach out to me at 305 206-1916 from anywhere in the world, or you can email me at drjackcohen18 at gmail.com. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.